Okay,
Oh.
looks like Nathan has access to turn 1, which is very, very powerful. Looks like neither player has resolved their mulligans yet.
That's that former world champ difference.
Is that 1-0 thing on the left side? That should be 0-0 now, or am
I
I
think so,
misreading
yeah.
something?
Unless Dingo snuck in a win while we were talking about the matchup.
Mm-hmm. That would be that would be very capable for a scam to do.
That sounds like something this scam would do.
Yeah. What do you think about Dingo's hand, Jesse? You know, you're the resident scam expert, and if you're looking to get better at scam, you can subscribe to Jesse's Patreon and get the sideboard guide like I do.
Wow. Thanks for the plug. Yeah, I also would have mulliganed that hand. This hand's better. Ragamon is pretty risky on the draw in this matchup because it can get blown up by like a Renin 6, and also even if it's like a prismatic ending, they can like still fetch their tap land of whatever they want and then prismatic ending it on their turn.
Well, Nathan's on the play, and this is his hand. Gate just almost game over without a single game action being taken yet.
Yeah, Nathan's hand is fantastic, provided this Beanstalk is kind. Oh man, this Stern Scolding is going to have a stern talking to this monkey.
Yeah, I think so. What do you think about Mount Doom, Jesse? Are you playing it in your list?
I'm not. I don't know. I don't think that the ping. I mean, maybe like Dingo knows something I don't, but I just don't feel like the ping is that valuable. Oh, wow, this Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I kind of hate the card. Yeah, very, very key Thoughtseize.
You're probably take the beans,
yeah,
because one of your win conditions, obviously, the 4-color deck being a 4-color deck is pretty clunky, and I think Nathan's only playing 23 lands, which I think is a bit on the greedy side.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Renin 6 in your deck, Bean in your deck. It always I feel like messes with your land counts a little bit. And then also, how many cards is Nathan playing in his main deck? It looks like just
60, I believe.
Okay, then yeah, that's also a very interesting question mark for these lists. Nathan seems to be main decking an endurance instead of going up to like 64 or 66 like we've seen in the rest. It is funny that the Bean deck just does draw so many cards that you're basically required to either main deck an endurance or play more than 60 cards, which is pretty funny.
I like the main deck endurance choice. It is decent in this matchup as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nathan's list looks great for today.
Let's see. So this monkey,
I imagine is going to get
sternly
scolded.
spoken to. It's a pretty rude monkey, so it does. I do think it's like worthy of being scolded.
Is Nathan taking a screenshot of the scolding?
The stern scolding? Yeah, I bet. That seems within his range. The other option is to leyline binding it, but I would really rather save the leyline binding for a bigger threat.
Yeah, potentially Blood Moon too. Maybe what Nathan's thinking about is what's going to happen with this Arid Mesa. Are we going to get a basic Plains so we can try to play around Blood Moon that still lets us cast Teferi? It doesn't let us cast Renin 6 off the top, which would be pretty different here. So I think Nathan is likely trying to figure out what is happening with the Arid Mesa before we use Scolding or Binding.
And if I were in Nathan's position, I would do it. I would consider not fetching here because you can fetch a Sacred Foundry just as easily, and it does just as much work as this Rogran Triumph does in terms of casting Renin 6, giving you your full domain. But it also gives you the out of like, if you draw a land that changes your play, maybe you want to get that basic Plains.
Yeah, I agree. And then I've done what maybe Nathan just did, is double check Dingo's list. Dingo, unlike you, is actually not main decking any Blood Moons, which I think makes
then
just Scolding Triumph decision a lot easier.
Ooh, this was such a clutch draw because now he can bounce this Goblin token if he wants to and keep his Teferi on board.
That's true. I think you could also go for Renin 6 plus Prismatic ending the token. I think either line probably ends up being all right.
Which might actually be better just to start getting since you're short on lands. I love bouncing Goblin tokens with Teferi.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's one thing about 4-color is there's not a lot of wrong answers on these turns that can be pretty forgiving. From what I can gather.
Yeah. The biggest mistake you can make with 4-color is fetching incorrectly.
I think so too, and it's good that Nathan's taken his time to figure out what he needs to be doing. So I think we'll see probably. Oh, decides to go for discarding Terminate to maybe top deck Grief. I agree, Grief is one of the better draws you could have in this situation, but I guess Dingo can use his mana this turn. Can use all of his mana this turn, activating.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm singing a different tune about Mount Doom after this match.
Does Mount Doom get around Ring's protection? Is it? It should be each opponent. Oh, it's the damage though.
Yeah.
Is it a flavor fail that you can't damage an opponent who has the Ring active with Mount Doom?
I think it's a. Oh wow! But you can get it. You can sneak it under.
Yeah, again, that's pretty flavorful. Sneaking the Ring.
Yeah, a little Frodo
Underneath
action.
Mount Doom. Yeah, we call that move the Frodo.
So unfortunately, can't quite kill this Ren with this Fury, but pretty close.
Yeah, you can deal 4 out of 5 loyalty. What were they thinking with this card? I've been asking myself for like 5 years now.
It's not angry enough. And there's the grief right on time.
I guess the big question is, when do you think Dingo is going to concede here? Do you think he's going to play it out? He's been waiting all week.
I think the Omnath into casting Fury off of the mana is a fairly decent time to.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't really know. Dingo is very relaxed, and he's certainly not bothered about losing games. But is he? But you know, how far is he on the Reed Duke scale? The Reed Duke scale of never surrender.
Interesting. So, oh no, there's a Solitude too because nothing matters. Oh, quick. Yeah, that's true. You just don't need the Ren anymore.
Good play. I might Lightning Bolt myself here.
I wish you could grief yourself.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they need to make sure Reanimator wasn't a little. I love conceding with the Thoughtseize on the stack. That's always a good.
That's a good time to do it. That was definitely the right play. Dingo, clearly a scam expert, figuring out the perfect time to concede, and seemingly knows the sideboard plan really, really well. Immediately dragging those Blood Moon Shieldred's Kolaghan's Command in. We've kind of gone over a little bit about the sideboard plan, but what you're the scam expert. What are you boarding out against 4-color as scam, Jesse?
I think there's a couple options. Lightning Bolt definitely the first to go. Cutting some Ragavan makes sense, although I still like it on the play personally. I also think that the scam effects are a bit awkward. They're great, obviously, on turn 1, but most of the removal that you're facing off against is exile-based. I really don't like cutting these Voidwalkers. I think that the 4-color deck has just better cards than you, and it's actually like a solid play to like Thoughtseize them and take their like 1 ring or Omnath or something.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Voidwalker, I think, is one of the better cards from my experience playing the matchup. But Dingo's played a lot. He definitely has a angle that he likes to attack from usually.
Yeah, from watching Dingo stream a few times, I think he and I just like play this deck slightly differently, which is totally fine. I think Fury is another card you could maybe trim down on. It does kill Omnath, but it's somewhat awkward to Fury on turn 1.
Yeah, I think you might want less than 3 terminates post board against them. Where you have Omnath, you have Fury to kill Omnath, and then there's like too many more targets for the terminates outside of that.
Yeah. All right. I like Dingo's opener here.
Yeah, much better than the first Mill to 5.
Yeah.
Is there any obvious choice here on the take? Takes the binding.
Before I had a chance to finish thinking about it, he took the binding. I think that I might have taken Bolt over. Oh, I guess if you're worried about if your plan here is to Blood Moon them out of the game, then that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too. Although in some ways, maybe taking the binding could be a tell that there is a Blood Moon over there. That's probably not something to worry too much about.
Another reason, I guess one of the reasons to have cut the Voidwalkers is they can be hard to cast through Blood Moon. So if that's like a primary part of your plan, especially on the play, that makes sense. But the other thing about the Voidwalkers is 4-color tends to take a lot of damage from their own lands. So chipping in for 3 unblockable is actually like one of the ways you can cheese them out of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, just naturally do another swamp. This is something I likely won't be doing much of in my match, given that I cut one of my swamps.
Yeah, I mean, I the decision to play Godless Shrine seems so crazy in your build. I wonder what's. I don't know. I'm so scared of your Stony Silences. It's going to be very rough when we play.
I'm scared of my Stony Silences too, honestly. So at least we have that in common. All right, so I guess.
So it's kind of a little weird here where you want to get Island, but then you can't cast any of your spells. Like I wonder if it's better to get a Triome and then your Lightning Bolt is online. Although now, if you have Island, then any non-basic land gives you a mountain, so your domain is 3. You can just get rid of Blood Moon.
Yeah. The problem is Island is just one of your worst basics. Is the worst basic in the deck by quite a lot. And actually, when I play 4-color, I've cut the Hollowed Fountain from my list.
Oh, I like that a lot, actually.
And here we are with Hollowed Fountain split in half on Nathan's side of the battlefield.
Man, Stern Scolding is so good.
Oh my god.
It's actually like very lucky for Nathan that so Dingo already had the 4th land. I was thinking that he top decked the 4th land to cast Grief instead of Fury, but those already in the hand. Man, back-to-back Fable here. That's going to be so much pressure against Nathan, who's stumbling so much. And one thing here too is like whenever Nathan does find the land to Leyline Binding the Blood Moon, we'll have to take the entire turn off to binding it, and then we'll have still pretty rough mana because we have Island Plains in play. It's going to be will we have red mana for Lightning Bolt? Unclear.
Which Omnath would you have pitched to this Solitude?
I would have tried to just get them all out of the hand. I hate registering that card.
Yeah,
I would have gone to discarded Omnath.
I would have done the most recent one drawn because that's the most egregious one.
Yeah, that's fair. You have to punish the Omnath. Well, 2 super lopsided games. I think that you are right that the games are always very lopsided for either player. Scam wins like this when 4-color stumbles, when they get to punish the stumble, and then when 4-color wins, it's like just like we saw last game, super over the top, infinite cards. Scam had the mulligans, just very swingy matchup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, top deck Celestial Purge,
all-star in the matchup.
Yeah,
which is the 4 good targets would you purge?
That's actually a really interesting question here. I think that you might be right that like it's too late to get rid of the Blood Moon. Life total's really low. I think I might purge the Bowmaster so we could try to draw a land and bounce a token with Teferi. But of course, like the Fable, but like both Fables are really tough.
One of Nathan's best draws here is a Fury. So making that as good as possible also makes sense by hitting. But I guess preventing the looting is maybe valuable.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Nathan is just trying to draw Fury here. I think that seems to be a good strategy. All right.
Look how good Voidwalker was on this board, by the way.
I know. I won the game immediately.
Now, to be fair, Lightning Bolt also would have been just as good.
Yeah.
All right, they're coming back in, and the Blood Moons are coming out on the draw.
Wow, that is really interesting. I like that. So what came in for the Blood Moons? The Voidwalkers. Okay.
Yeah, and the Ragavan's coming back in on the draw, which doesn't make sense to me because it's worse in the draw than the play. And this K command too. Was that in the deck?
That was in the sideboard. It's kind of. I feel like the Kolaghan's could probably be pretty bad in the matchup. Like you're not killing anything with 2 damage or destroy an artifact.
It is the funniest play you can make right before conceding is trying to Kolaghan's command a 1-ring.
Yeah, that's true. I had a lot of players make that joke with Kolaghan's command and Viseiju and every destroy artifact after the ring got printed. My opponents just kept targeting my rings over and over and over again, and it was just very funny.
That happened to me as recently as last week.
Oh wow. To be fair, like it probably should not have had a destructible, So do you put back a land here for Nathan, or are you a bit worried about your Red and 6 getting thought seized?
I would think about, I think the land is probably the right play. I think second Beans is also somewhat reasonable because it's such a liability against the Bowmasters.
Yeah, I agree. If you were going to put it back a land, do you think Nathan might be thinking about which land to put back if that's where he's landed?
That's definitely possible. I think, I mean, they're all white lands, which is what matters the most. Putting back Arid Mesa makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe you would go... Yeah, it is a little tough to be on like the Fetch a Plains plan with Rin and 6 in your hand. You could maybe do something like Rogren Triome into basic forest.
Yeah, because of course, crucially, Nathan does not know that Blood Moon is no longer in Dingo's deck.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like Blood Moon play or draw personally, but
I would have it in too. I think that Dingo's definitely got a plan and sticking to it, and I respect
has
that.
backed up and is now thinking about
Oh.
dropping this Beanstalk.
Nathan did take a mulligan, right? It's okay. I'm sorry, I was starting to doubt that.
Opener was a one lander.
Do you want to talk about Dingo's hand a little bit? His hand is very interesting on the draw. I think I agree with the keep decision.
Yeah, I think that it's so important to have something to do on turn one on the draw, and Thoughtseize does count. These 4-color decks are like pretty air, like full of air. And then obviously if he draws a red card, I think turn 1 Thoughtseize to clear the way, turn 2 Fury is a really solid line, especially if that turn 2 Fury is killing a Ren at 6.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then also drawing a Grief would be pretty nuts here, and got 4 of those to find in the top 2 cards.
Yeah, I also like having the redundant scam effect in case not the third redundant one,
yeah,
but the second one in case the answer to this Fury ends up being a Fury of Nathan's own.
Right, does take the Rin 6, or Dingo does take the Rin 6, is hoping to punish these beans with the Bowmaster. One problem with the plan of trying to Bowmaster your opponent's beans is that most of the things that trigger up the beanstalk are answers, so you're not going to get to trigger it that often. It'll be like 1 extra with the trigger on the stack if it's a Solitude or Leyland Binding or Fury answering the Bowmaster.
One interesting philosophical gameplay question from the scam side in this matchup is, if your opponent plays an Up the Beanstalk, do you cast your Bowmasters in? Oh my God, Thoughtseize bug.
Yeah, classic.
Do you cast your Bowmasters in response to the cast, or do you let it resolve and then in response to the trigger cast your Bowmasters?
I think that in general, the question then becomes, what's more valuable, the Bowmaster trigger or a card in your opponent's hand? And I think that's probably something in a Thoughtseize deck you can kind of answer on a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. Usually, I would probably value a card in my opponent's hand more than a single Bowmaster trigger, but it would be certainly contextual on the game. And then Dingo did draw a red card, and then got to kill the Red and 6 after all. Thank you, Thoughtseize bug. Although I
thought that Fury was dead for a second.
Well, it's about to be. Oh, sorry. What do you mean? It's not dead after all.
Oh my God. So fetching a Plains here does give full domain, which is a pretty nice.
Yeah.
This is a really great sequence for Nathan because he has to draw 2 cards here if he wants to. Oh, or he can do this?
Interesting.
Which is actually the better for Dingo. It's much better for him that this was the play.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan, I think maybe worried about not getting max bean value, would only get to draw 1 card off the Leyland Binding here.
Yeah, which would be devastating, I will say.
Oh, and although maybe a bit more seriously, holding the Binding for Blood Moon, pretty good play.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess we kind of have the inverse
binding. If this binding has to get spent on the I should just not talk.
Well, we kind of have the inverse question here. Like, do you binding before playing the bean or not? So I guess you can you probably go binding, response to your draw trigger, cast the binding, exile the Bowmaster.
Yeah, because they're gonna get a trigger one way or another. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. From the scam side, generally, I value the extra ping and the extra point of power on the Orc army more than I do the card in their hand, because once you're playing this sort of game, the idea is you're trying to get them dead as soon as possible. So denying them the card, it's you're sort of already playing into the idea that the cards they draw will not be good enough to prevent you from aggroing them out or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think you may be right about that. It definitely makes sense with your keep the Voidwalkers in strategy as well. And then Nathan decides not to hold up Leyland Binding this turn.
Ooh.
It does get punished by the top decked Ragavan. Things were looking really bad for Dingo, but I will say like his draws have certainly started to line up a bit better against Nathan's hand.
I
It
really
is.
like the way he's been playing it.
I agree.
What exiled? So this is nice too because the binding is priced into answering this Fury. So if Nathan doesn't draw another answer, this Ragavan's going to get to keep going.
That's true. There's going to be a lot of cards.
How do you feel about third beans?
I feel pretty good about third beans. Let's see. Yeah, Nathan does have enough green to play both beans and then binding. Doing so will put him down to 5 life if he chooses to use Flooded Strand to get basic island. Assuming we're counting the Ragavan and the Orc army as... Oh, sorry. 8 down to 4. After the Ragavan and the Orc army get in, assuming no Solitude white card drawn off the Leyline binding. Could potentially go for main phase binding to try to find Fury just to kill the Orc army to keep the life total as high as possible. Now, we know the Lightning Bolts came out for Dingo. Do you think that Nathan may be wondering if Dingo left any copies in?
That's certainly, it could be crossing his mind. I think that he would reasonably deduce that, like, if you have to cut something, the bolts are the least impactful thing in the main deck. But
these draws from Nathan have been really good.
Yeah, triple beans. All right. At what point does Dingo turn to the I'm going to deck you plan?
Hopefully never, because then we're going to be sitting here for quite a while, and I'm itching to cast some Knight of Sweet's Revenge. Oh, land, Fury. Okay.
So
what's pretty interesting about
1
Fury...
off of the Wicked token, 4 back down to 5. No, 4 to 4.
Yeah, because Nathan drew the basic island for turn, so didn't have to fetch.
This One Ring is not going to have a ton of room to operate unless Nathan can find an Omnath.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be to come down to. Also, notably, Nathan can't cast Fury without a red card. Or I guess Nathan could go fetch Shock or Shock the Sacred Foundry down to 2.
This Fury, almost good.
Yeah, almost really good. Big draw for Nathan. The third Leyline binding. Wow.
Big 6 mana draw. Or sorry, 1 mana draw.
Still got to think about sequencing.
Yeah, so this binding, I mean... Oh, we cast in the One Ring just for protection? Yeah, it's a good way to... It makes sense.
I agree. You definitely have to be worried about lightning bolts. You know, in these kind of spots, you're so ahead. You know, your Leyline binding comes with a free Ancestor recall. Your Fury comes with a free Ancestor recall. You really don't need to be tapping the ring here. I think that's like one of the main ways you're going to lose this game. But also we're kind of in a spot where if Dingo can just draw Orcish Bowmaster, it'd be very difficult for Nathan to win. Where like the draws off Bean are not optional. You have to draw, and every card, with a few exceptions, that can answer a Bowmaster is going to trigger Bowmaster. So
these are 3 excellent draws on Nathan's side.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still not an Omnath. As soon as Omnath enters Nathan's hand, the game is going to be Ogre. But
Shieldred also be a good card for Dingo to draw now that he has that 4th mana.
That's true. Right, so Nathan has a mystery card hiding over there behind the second
frankly,
copy
that's
of the
between
ring.
him and God. I could not.
Oh,
it is not my place to know what that card is. Okay, well.
Yeah, I only care if it's Omnath. There's actually probably pretty good argument for using the prismatic ending on the token here, just
for the Shieldred reason.
Go off the Shieldred. Although you could just you plan to pitch it to the Solitude, of course. Doing
but that
so
also won't work.
Kills you, yeah. Yeah, drawing Blood Crypt seems to have been a misplay from Dingo. Would have liked to draw.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that personally. It is relevant that absolute worst case scenario, Nathan can solitude his own fury to gain 3 life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's probably not a realistic series of events that ends up with Dingo winning this game, but this one's like at least the most interesting of the 3 we've had so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another thing that I would have like my whole game plan of like trying to edge out every last point of damage. In a case like that first turn Thoughtseize, I would have been interested in leaving the Ren and 6 alone because using Ren and 6 every turn does cost some amount of life. And I guess if your plan is to Bowmasters, then that it'll just get pinged down. But
yeah.
clearing
Yeah,
the
but you have the
very
Fury
valuable.
to like just draw a red card to get rid of the Ren. It's definitely a tough spot.
I do like that Shieldred is beyond scolding.
That's true, and you know, big flavor win. Good job, Wizards. Protection from everything again. I guess like what happens if Dingo draws Shieldred into Shieldred? I think that would get the job done. Instead, we draw Thoughtseize. We may see Ragavan get after Teferi. Nathan might
Could
have
attack
to.
Nathan and then concede.
Yeah, that could be a fun way to end the game. I think there's probably enough fight left in Dingo still.
I like holding this Thoughtseize until you can like use it to clear the way for something.
Yeah,
and also until there's no protection.
I agree. We don't have the paper sub game of putting a Thoughtseize on the stack with ring protection in play.
Yeah.
Although Thoughtseize now dead after Fury gets to get in again.
True.
I think that we'll just see Nathan take up Teferi and pass the turn.
Yeah, and this prismatic ending will prevent Shieldred from even being an out because you can cast it for 4. Well,
you know, Nathan could disconnect, perhaps. Maybe feel some pity for his opponent. But I think what's more likely is we see Nathan has a prismatic ending and win the match. Congratulations to Nathan.